Welcome to today's presentation. Those of us who are watching for the first time, karibuni sana. You can go through previous videos to be able to maybe just familiarize yourself on some of the presentations that I've put across. Basically, they are pertaining to nursing training, education, nursing experiences, and currently on immigration. Now, I am quickly going to share the requirements that we need to be a registered nurse in New Zealand, and this will be important for those of us who are keen to immigrate. Maybe you're thinking, if you're thinking of New Zealand as one of the countries, I know top countries would be Australia, United States, UK, and many other countries. Nursing is a global profession. New Zealand could be a country that you would consider. So quickly I'll go through the requirements. There are 4 major requirements that you need to be a registered nurse in New Zealand. There are other finer details that you may need depending on your specific situation, and that would just be dependent on individuals. But generally, for if you are internationally qualified nurse, you're practicing in a country other than New Zealand and you'd like your license to be transferred or converted from your country of practice to New Zealand, then these are the requirements that you need to have. So one of the requirements is that you must have your nursing registration by the nursing board in the countries that you're practicing for the last 5 years. So for instance, if in the last or within the last 5 years you've practiced in 3 countries, for the Nursing Council of New Zealand to consider your practices in those 3 countries, you must be able to show your proof of registration in those 3 countries. And this proof will and must be provided by the nursing board of the specific countries that you've been registered and practiced. If you've only been registered in 1 country, that's all that you need, a proof of registration and licensing in the country of your practice as a registered nurse for Nursing Council to be able to regard or to consider your application. Number 2 is your nursing education. New Zealand looks at different framework when it comes to grading or classification of courses. So for them to be able to classify your qualification at it's called NZQF, New Zealand Qualification Framework Level 7, is for bachelor's program. That means where you train, or rather the institutions that you train, or in the countries that you trained your nursing training, you should have trained it at bachelor's level. However, the exemption of that in very few countries, that maybe their kind of training, it may not have been at bachelor's level, but it's almost as equal as that of New Zealand. So they will ask for your syllabuses, they'll ask for the curriculum for them to be able to correctly grade you. Now, it can work both ways. There are those of us who might have been trained at bachelor's level in our country, but when Nursing Council requests for your syllabus and your curriculum, it grades you at a diploma level, or what they call the enrolled nurse. So you should be able to be open with the kind of training that you've had. The good thing is that all your documentation must be processed through CGFNS, and they'll be able to tell you whether your training meets the threshold to be regarded at level 7 of NZQF or a grade that is lower. If it is below level 7, then you definitely will not be able to be regarded as a registered nurse. So they may let you know that with your level of training, you can only be registered as an enrolled nurse, and you may need an additional training in New Zealand for you to be able to meet or to be at level 7 of qualification. Number 3 is your work experience. So what they require is that within the last 5 years, you should have trained, or rather not really trained, you should have practiced as a nurse, out of which 2 years of the last 5 years should be in clinical practice. So this does not need to sound, I need to be very clear on this. This does not mean that you need 5 years experience. No. With your 2 years experience, and assuming the 2 years experience has been in clinical practice, they'll be able to consider that. Now, they're coming up with a new process of registration. This work experience may change in the sense that they may accept those with 1 year experience. However, there are details that they may need when it comes to that. Now, there are also another situation whereby we have internationally trained nurses. You've been trained in your country, you've been practicing in your country as a registered nurse, but because you do not have New Zealand license, you've come to New Zealand and you've worked as a caregiver or a care staff in a health setup, in a healthcare setup. Now, that experience, gladly to say, it does not go into waste. Nursing Council, through the help of your reference from your clinical manager, are able to consider your work and the kind of work that you're doing as a caregiver, or your level of practice as a caregiver. They're able to consider that, and it may go towards your work experience. So all is not lost. You can work for 1 year in your country, then come as a caregiver or a care staff, gain a few experiences, because this experience will be considered. I've seen people that have been considered with such kind of scenarios. So that let not your less year of experience discourage you from trying the application process. And how do you know? Maybe by the time you finish with the application process, you might have acquired 6 more months of experience, and that adds into a year of experience. So for clarity, they look at for the last 5 years. If that means if you've had 5 years experience or more, has 2 years of your last 5 years been in clinical practice? If that's been the case, then they're able to regard and to consider your application. And fourth and last requirement is your English test. There are 2 tests that are acceptable, that is OET and IELTS. For IELTS, they require band 7 in listening, speaking, reading, and writing. It's 6.5. OET, they require grade B or 350 in listening, reading, and speaking. Writing, they require a C+, that is below 350. I think 300. They require writing at 300, but the rest is at 350. So those are the 2 English set of requirements that are required by the Nursing Council of Kenya. Nursing Council of New Zealand, sorry for that, apologies. Nursing Council of New Zealand, IELTS and OET. Now, there are countries that are also exempted, that candidates or applicants must not necessarily provide English tests. So the English tests are really not for all applicants, and this is now specific to your country of training. So you may find, maybe assuming, I know UK is one of them. So I'll give an example. If you've been a nurse trained in Kenya but worked in UK, you have UK license, as much as you've worked in UK, but your training was not in UK, then I'm sorry to tell you that you will require your English test. So the exemption comes in the sense that your training was in the country that is exempted, not necessarily your licensing and your licensing certificate or your practicing. I hope that is clear, but if it's not clear and you have further questions, please feel free to reach out down in the comment section, and I'll be able to attend to your questions as much as possible. So guys, thank you so much for your questions that are coming along. Thank you for your your interaction. It's from these interactions that I'm able to share the little that I know out of my own experience. So I wish you guys all the best, those who are planning with the immigration process. Of course, it's not very easy, but with focus and determination, all things are possible.